Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Economic and Community Development Meeting. Today is Monday, March 14th, 2022. And as you can see, we are following the new guidelines put forth by the governor, and we are the first official meeting without our masks on up here on the dais. So kind of excited about that. But anyway, I'm joined by my colleagues, Councilmember Michaud and Councilmember Larmer, and then I'd like to thank you, Rhonda, for keeping us on track and taking good notes today, so thank you. We will move on to approval of the agenda. Are there any changes from council or staff? All right, we will accept the approval as is, and then we have the approval of the minutes from our February 14th, 2022 meeting.
Chair, I move to approve the minutes from February 14th, 2022.
All right.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Minutes are passed unanimously, and we will move on to one of our first items, which is an information-only item, but it's an update on the Naden Assemblage outcome of its Memorandum of Understanding with Avenue 55 and next steps. So welcome, Bill.
Thank you, Councilmember. Good afternoon, council members. I am here indeed. I forecasted I'd be back after the last update on the MOU extension. That I'd be back here and joined today by the development team, Avenue 55, to give an update on our way towards a DA purchase and sale agreement. I'm just going to share a few slides revisiting, first off, why did we position the property like we have. These are some updated information about the submarket of the Kent Industrial Valley, which is more than just Kent. It goes from Renton to Sumner. And you've seen over the last 17 years significant growth in manufacturing, but it's interesting to note that there's been a decrease of workplaces. There's actually been a declining number of firms in manufacturing. And if you go back some years ago when we first worked with Shape Technologies, and they had made their announcement that manufacturing is moving to Kansas back in 2018, is also when we also readjusted our DCE zoning guidelines to allow for manufacturing. We wanted specifically to look at opportunities of having high wage, high employment jobs in our downtown central business district. And our primary industry has always been manufacturing. So while we've seen an employment growth is increasing in manufacturing, the number of workspaces has been declining. At the same time, we've seen astonishing rents increases in industrial. I've never seen a naturally occurring chart like you see there on the left there, which is just over the last couple of years since COVID-19 hit, almost a 90-degree turn up in rents for industrial land. I'm sorry, industrial product, not land, and industrial interior rents. So like e-commerce has been on a tear, and it's very difficult if we're trying to help and retain regional manufacturing, especially headquarters or smaller mid-sized manufacturers, helping to them retain and expand in our community. They have specialized requirements that aren't provided by the private market naturally, and they are something that we've been very interested in, and that's why we did the request for qualifications for industrial developers to help us develop the Naden Avenue site as a manufacturing campus or flex tech campus. Even though we've had almost, I've reported before to council, over 90% of all the Puget Sound industrial project under construction within Kent, absorption has been incredibly strong. That means the rate at which that's been being absorbed by the market has been incredibly strong, and rents are still also going up. So vacancy is the chart you see on the right there, and you can see vacancy rates are still at a very low, considering that we're trying to supply as fast as possible through the permit office product. It's getting absorbed quickly, and rents are still going up. It was even true this weekend that QI2, which has been in here since the Kent Space Center in the 1960s, it grew out of the Boeing research labs. It is a high-tech research and development headquarters here in the community. It was reported in the Puget Sound Business Journal just this weekend that they were acquired by a company in Texas. They plan to retain their employees here, but I quote, it's going to be a challenge for us to stay with Amazon in the area. They're taking all the space. We're feeling a bit confined. And if you've ever taken a tour of their building, they have this flow of office to sort of industrial space. And that's exactly the kind of company that we were concerned about being priced out of this market, and also seeing them as having an opportunity if we could get them to Meeker Street, if we could get them into our historic core. So the opportunity is bringing prime industry, high-wage technology jobs into our downtown core. So we needed to position the property very patiently to realize that type of interest, given that speculative market development for industrial really wanted to be big fulfillment centers with lots of dock doors, which our DCE zoning code does not allow. So we went through a request for qualification procedure. Of course, we've surplused the property back in 2016. Here's a brief review of milestones. We got access approved from Naden to the State Highway 516 or Willis Street in 2017. We did that zoning change, which actually took effect only in April of 2019. We've seen some small businesses come to Railroad Avenue since then. We did an RFQ process, as you recall. We chose Avenue 55. We negotiated an MOU, which was executed in February of 2021. We did a slight 1-month extension to adjust for calendar just a few weeks ago. And we were seeking manufacturing build-to-suit and or flex tech business park to enter employment. And I also just want to highlight the achievement of community makerspace as outlined in our economic development plan was going to be something that was going to take public participation at some point. And so that is still true today. So I just wanted to caveat that and then welcome up Drew Zaborowski and Nick Yaman from Avenue 55 to provide some updates on the last year. Thank you.
Perfect. Thanks, Bill. Good afternoon, Council. My name is Drew Zaborowski. I'm a Senior Development Manager at Avenue 55, and I have Nick Yaman with me, who's our Development Associate at Avenue 55. Joe Blattner, our President, is traveling today. Could not attend, but he will be in attendance tomorrow. As Bill mentioned, Avenue 55 has spent the last year hard at work on the Naden property, or as we like to call it, the Kent Technology Center. Before diving too far into the Kent Technology Center, I thought I'd give you a quick recap of who Avenue 55 is. Avenue 55 was founded in 2013 by Joe Blattner, who has over 30 years of development experience in the Kent Valley, and most notably developed Kent Station. Over the past 9 years, Avenue 55 has primarily focused on the industrial and flex product types to strategically fill market needs. We've developed everything from $50 million industrial business parks to urban infill, multi-story flex projects catered to R&D, high-tech, and life science tenants. We are a private local real estate company which allows us to be nimble and react quickly to ever-changing market conditions. So where do we stand? Avenue 55 in the City of Kent, as Bill mentioned, executed a Memorandum of Understanding in February 2021 on the Naden property. We immediately got to work to understand the potential tenants who'd be interested in leasing or owning space. The brokerage firm Newmark Knight Frank has been retained to lead these efforts, which Nick will hear discuss in a second. Simultaneously, we've retained the architecture and engineering firm McKinsey to lead preliminary feasibility and design efforts with specific focus on the interurban trail, washed-out requirements, relocation of Naden Avenue, and Meet Me on Meeker directives, just to name a few. Of course, none of this wouldn't happen without working hand-in-hand with the wonderful City of Kent. Nick will now share some insight into what potential opportunities Avenue 55 foresees at the Kent Technology Center, as evidenced by various letters of interest and preliminary massing studies completed to date.
Thanks, Drew. Hello, council members. Thank you for having us today, and thank you, Bill, for your introduction. As Drew mentioned, our primary concentration over the last year has been marketing this wonderful piece of property within downtown Kent, which we've been very successful in doing, but obviously the question in everybody's mind is who is demonstrating all of this wonderful interest. So as we've talked about, the primary group of users that we've identified is this high-tech manufacturing, a bucket of users, and we'll talk about 2 other buckets in a little bit. But these high-tech manufacturers are users that want not only highly flexible facilities, but ones that also have curb appeal, right? These are going to be headquarters for these companies, and as such, the facility needs to be attractive and have characteristics such as clear height and clean manufacturing floors, but also be convenient for their employees to get to and from work. Part of the attractiveness of this site is proximity to amenities. One of the groups that we talked about before touring asked if there were any food options within walking distance, and we were able to say plenty. They were located in North Kent and had to get in a car and drive to go get lunch anywhere. So when we talk about amenities and a desire for headquarters, this site has a lot of benefits. Moving on to our next group of users, we can start to talk about the nonprofit and the STEM groups that Bill mentioned that primarily are interested in being co-located with these high-tech manufacturers for the purpose of career development, student development, proximity to schools and transit is very important for these groups that we've chatted with. And all of them have expressed a desire to be co-located, not only together, but also with the manufacturer themselves, to show the students and the young people that are involved in all of these groups that, here's the future. This is kind of what, some career aspirations can start to look like. Look at this big, headquarters that's right next door. So they come with some caveats. They're nonprofit groups. As Bill mentioned, rents have skyrocketed in this area, right? And nonprofit groups typically have some price sensitivity. So you see this this dichotomy that can't really exist, right? With nonprofits and rents increasing, there's some complexities that come along with getting these groups onto our site, and so that's where some cooperation with the City of Kent and some public-private partnership will go a long way towards making this collaboration very possible. And finally, in terms of the groups we've chatted with, there is this admittedly miscellaneous bucket of users, but as we want to exemplify the sheer amount and variety of interest that this site has generated. So Space United is a maker space soccer club that talked about having a soccer field on the roof of an industrial building. So we have truly run the gamut in terms of interest and uses on this site. But at some point, that amount of interest needs to start getting focused down. So we started on a path of engineering and massing studies to kind of understand what this site will eventually look like. This was the first rendition of a massing study. The red building up top would be, kind of a retail activated building that caters to the Meet Me on Meeker corridor, and then the purple and orange buildings subsequently would be two various sizes of a high-tech manufacturing use, so allowing for some flexibility in size. Again, this was probably over the summer, a number of months ago, as we kind of started to craft what it might look like. We had a pre-app conversation over the summer to start to understand more of the intricacies of the site, including what a new Naden connection between Willis and Meeker would potentially look like, understanding utility easements. There's a WashDOT hatched box on the southern portion of the site that has been pre-designed and is established and approved. So we started to refine the site process, or the site design process, in conjunction with the city over the course of our marketing efforts as well. As I talked about, many uses. We ran the gamut from these small nonprofits to this is an example of what a 500,000 square foot massive office headquarters potentially could have looked like. So further examples of us vetting a number of different uses on the site. But we started to focus on those users that have given us written letters of interest, groups that we have this interest in hand from, and that has allowed us to really dive into catering to the requirements that are real. And that allows us to come up with some renderings and allows the project to start to take shape. So these are some renderings that we had put together Based on feedback we've gotten from users that have provided written letters of interest, you can see some similarities to that very first massing study with the purple and orange boxes that we first put together, but a lot of major differences as well. You can see the retail-oriented frontage along Meeker Street. That remains the same. The white box just behind that retail portion is designed to be a manufacturing space or some sort of complementary use to a retail frontage. You can think about maybe like a bakery that has a high employee count in their bakery manufacturing and then also wants some direct-to-client sales or something along those lines. So we can look a little bit more specifically at that front building. We can kind of give some life to this image. The Spark portion that you see that has that lobby off of the public plaza, we're putting in there as a potential location for some of these STEM uses that can be co-located together. That's an area that could have an auditorium that they would all share or some classrooms that they would all share, et cetera. This doesn't incorporate the Meeker standards. We're aware of that. That's some detail that we'll certainly plan to add in the future. We're aware of those standards. In the second building, this is something that caters very, very well to those high-tech manufacturers. You can see parking for their employees. On the far end of the building on the left-hand side of the screen, you can see a potential entrance location for their lobby, which we'll have a detailed picture of in a minute. The park in the foreground is a little bit of a nod and allocation to the interurban trail and what can be done with that activation. And then you see just the one lowly loading bay door on the right-hand side. This is actually something that we've heard is specific and required for some of these aerospace manufacturers and the high-tech fun clandestine government projects that they have going on. That big loading door is required for some of their distribution, which happens very, very infrequently based on our conversations. So we'll get a little bit more detail on kind of what a potential lobby and entrance area would look like. Bill hinted to us that there has been a rocket donated to the city of Kent.
Offered by the Museum of Flight.
Offered by the Museum of Flight. It certainly won't be 80 feet tall, but this is a placeholder for a cool little industry nod that is available, I think, for site design. Finally, some more imagery to pull on some of the high-tech manufacturing collaborative space that we envision going on inside of some of these buildings for the sake of interior design. If you notice on the left-hand side there's some big, nice bay windows that'll overlook the manufacturing floor. Again, some design ideas that our team has put together. The final user will dictate what their facility really looks like. But just some imagery to kind of lean on as the project starts to take shape. More of that same imagery. And then at the end of the day, our hope is to progress to a development agreement with the City of Kent. And so our ask here today is to get approval to proceed to that negotiation. So happy to answer any questions that you guys have, and we can go from there.
Great. Questions from my colleagues. Councilmember Larmer, are you trying to hit your button?
Yeah, I do have a question. And just thinking, Bill, of your, you mentioned that business earlier that was looking for more office space in addition to.
Oh yeah, I was just mentioning that hit over the weekend, right? It was an example. The quote was an example of the demand that we see that is kind of unique, but isn't being supplied naturally in the marketplace.
So looking at the renderings, I'm just wondering, is there an opportunity, maybe not now, but in the future, to actually go up and add additional office space for some of this demand? Continue.
Office is challenging right now still. Latest memos are that vacancy rates in Kent specifically have been going down, but the rents for office aren't really there for multi-story office buildings right now. Having said that, I should probably defer to the experts.
I was going to say, but do we have adequate office, built for these manufacturing companies? I mean, is it adequate what's configured there today?
Yeah, so these renderings are really just our best guess at what some of the feedback, I guess, the feedback aggregated into one rendering, but we've talked to many users, right? So our goal is to refine these renderings into a programming that really works for the specific users that will whittle down in the next coming months. So the goal being that once we, reach out to a certain aerospace company and enter into a deal with them, we are providing them with the requisite office count, parking for their employees. So this is a little bit of just a general imagery of what it could look like, but each user will be able to dictate as we progress farther into a deal with them on what the specific requirements of their facility is. And some have a heavier parking account, a heavier employee count, maybe more office. Some have more manufacturing and need wider column spacing or higher clear height. So every requirement differs in that regard. So our job is to, as we start negotiating with specific prospective tenants, that we create a building that accommodates all of their needs.
Yeah, if I may add to that, it's just build to suit. So it'll have sufficient office to the need driven by the end user. Just a general observation is that
I just
manufacturing.
want everybody to bring their headquarters to Kent.
Absolutely, that's been our objective too. And I think when it comes to headquarters in Kent, we tend to have our high tech, our highest volume, most employment rich per square footage, predominant industry that we could target for our downtown was advanced manufacturing, and that's certainly been borne out in all the letters of interest requirements we've seen today.
And many of the users that we do have spoken to, I should say, this is probably, this isn't a specific design, but my guess would be anywhere from 24 to 36 foot clear on the inside of the warehouse, and their office could be a 2-story mezzanine within that clear height. So while it doesn't look like a 2-story building, there's actually 2 stories of office in there.
Oh, gotcha, okay.
Is quite often what we see in terms of the advanced manufacturing.
Yeah, and I think that with the 36 clear height, would that be like 40 feet just from the ground? You're looking at almost a 4-story structure, right?
Yeah, that's the clear height is just from the bottom of the inside structure. So yeah, probably like a 40-foot tall building plus or minus.
Okay, great.
And I know this is probably a difficult question to answer, but timeline-wise, I mean, do you have some, kind of goals looking forward of where this could actually be?
We have laid out a schedule that's part of the reason why we're here today, is to do our best to attempt to progress where we sit right now, because every prospective tenant that we speak to, their 2 questions are, what is rent and what is your timing? And those 2 things are undefined as we sit right now. So our goal is to move into the development agreement to start to define some of those questions that they ask. We believe that it is feasible, and with the cooperation of the great city of Kent and permitting timelines, that a 2-year horizon is probably moving, but it's feasible. We'd be hauling, and that depends on a lot of overlap happening together, and that also is a lot of risk at Avenue 55, spending dollars and resources in advance of maybe some certainties, which we're prepared to do. As I mentioned, perhaps we are moving into design while simultaneously in lease negotiations with a tenant. And if that lease falls apart, we've spent that money on design that is specific to a tenant. So we're prepared to do that. And that's part of the reason why we're here today, to start to progress those, facilitate some of those, I guess, answers. The timeline and rent being, which is in turn land price, in turn, get those answered.
Councilmember Michaud.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So my question is, what exactly are we agreeing to today?
We're agreeing to progress from the MOU to a DA PSA agreement as outlined in our MOU process. It's a lot of letters, but
Little alphabet soup there.
I was very brief last time. Our memorandum of understanding written with our law department with Avenue 55 set up a process where we would have a proposal such as this from Avenue 55 that council would approve before we would authorize the mayor's office to then direct staff to negotiate a development agreement and a final proposal with Avenue 55.
Okay. I was looking at our city attorney in the audience, and he said we'll talk about it more tomorrow.
No, your decision point will be tomorrow.
Tomorrow, yes.
Okay, gotcha.
So today, any other questions about this? Because I think what we're trying to do, this will come back to us tomorrow. We'll have another presentation. And And then this is just us saying that we authorize you to move forward with the negotiation and development agreement working through that purchase and sale agreement. That's what we would be doing tomorrow, so.
And if you have any feedback on direction that's helpful for staff as we go into those negotiations as to what our priorities are in that negotiation, we've talked about STEM education. It's something that would take participation from the public sector to achieve in that negotiation. So those are some of the things that we'll be doing in a negotiation, but council would have to approve the results of that negotiation.
Perfect. Pat, did you have something you want to add?
Can I just, real quick, sorry guys.
Yeah, no, jump in.
So tomorrow the same presentation will occur, and you will be asked to authorize staff to negotiate a development agreement. That will take some period of time, and we will come back to you. We will have a hearing. It statutorily requires a hearing, and you'll have some more certainty at that time. And then staff is over the next number of weeks, we'll be negotiating that agreement, and we will come back to you with some more certainty.
Perfect.
So it's just like moving forward in the next step of the process.
So I think kind of from us, we're all in agreement that this is good to bring forward tomorrow. Perfect.
Yep.
All right.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. We'll see you again tomorrow.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on in the agenda, we've got a couple items of business, and the first one is going to be an appointment to the Lodging Tax Advisory Committee. Welcome, Michelle.
Thank you, Councilmember Troutner, and the other ladies on this fabulous committee. Tonight, I am here to present to you a recommendation by the Lodging Tax Committee to reappoint the general manager of the Best Western by the Green, Andrew Hutchison, to serve on our Lodging Tax Advisory Committee. Our Lodging Tax Committee membership is dictated by state law. We are to have equal numbers of those who contribute to the lodging tax fund to match up with those who are eligible to use lodging tax funds as far as grants or what have you. We have a very hard time recruiting hoteliers to serve on this committee. There's not that many hotels in Kent, and there are especially over the last couple of years, some serious turbulence in the hospitality industry, in which some of the general managers that we had recruited to serve have actually moved into other markets. Additionally, we know some of our hotels are being considered for conversion into multifamily housing as well. So we did, however, proceed with marketing this opening. We continue to market our openings on the lodging tax website, as well as a monthly boards and commissions newsletter that goes out. And we've also been promoting these openings in the mayor's weekly newsletter. So trying to get the word out the best we can with the available communication venues we have, as well as some one-on-one outreach that me and Bill continually do with our business community, especially those in the hotel industry. So with that, just wanted to make you aware, Andrew has been on this Lodging Tax Committee for a long time. And we had begged him to please stay on, given the lack of response we had right now. So we're hoping that you will make an exception to your recently updated policies when it comes to filling vacant positions on the Lodging Tax Committee.
Thank you, Michelle. How many people do we have on that committee?
We have 8 people to serve on the committee, and we do have some openings for non-hoteliers as well. What makes this hard, though, and those are much easier to fill, with the lack of enough hoteliers to fill up 4 slots, it really gets them, the balance is off. So we haven't been as aggressive about pursuing those to serve on the nonprofit side. we have received applications in previously to COVID, but the hoteliers have expressed real concern about them being sort of outnumbered on the committee. So with Andrew, with the Best Western serving, and then we've got David Kwok out at the Hampton Inn. Both of those gentlemen have expressed strong interest in serving to try to meet that hotelier perspective when it comes to our marketing.
Any other questions from my colleagues?
Yeah, so how many, you said that we had difficulty with soliciting applications, so are you saying we got 0 other applicants?
From hoteliers, correct.
So
And in our own outreach, we have certainly worked with trying to track down general managers and staff at other hotels here in Kent. And like I mentioned, there's been a lot of movement as far as hotels being sold or staff moving on. We had 2 people ready to serve, one from the Ramada, and then it was bought out by another company. And then the Hawthorne Suites, and then also Town Place Suites. All those staff or general managers had moved on, or if they are too new now, they're not ready to sign up to serve on the committee at this point. Not that we wouldn't follow up with them after they've had some more time.
Any other questions?
No, I'll just say I think this is exactly what, the reason we crafted the policy the way we did is that so that we can extend these, known entities that are serving on, and doing a great job serving when we do end up with 0 applicants. So this is totally in line with our policy. So.
Great. All right. Could I please have a motion?
Yes, Madam Chair. I move to recommend to council the reappointment of Andrew Hutchison to the Lodging Tax Advisory Committee for a new 3-year term effective April 4th, 2022 through April 4th, 2025.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Well, congratulations. He will be reappointed.
Yes, thank you very much.
All right, and Michelle, you're going to continue on with the LTAC grant for ECDC.
Yes, thank you. Of those that are eligible to apply for lodging tax grants, municipalities are as well. So with economic development, as liaison to the Lodging Tax Committee, we work very regularly with the committee members on our marketing programs for Visit Kent, which is our leisure tourism promotion efforts. And we have requested $98,000 to support the marketing agency JayRay's work on our behalf. They have been working with us for several years now and have been very patient in working with us through several years of dramatically reduced contracts you can imagine as far as the really big challenges among the hospitality industry. But what they do for us is, first of all, they manage our Visit Kent website, but it's not just that site that they are working as far as updating. They work regularly with our teammates and colleagues over at Shower Center, at the Seattle Thunderbirds, at Kent Station. They work with the Kent Chamber and the Kent Downtown Partnership to ensure that all those various events are all updated onto the Visit Kent site. They also have a full citywide events calendar, so that is something that they work with us on. They also do blogs. They write 4 different blogs per quarter, as well as social media. They do posts on Facebook and Instagram multiple times a week to make sure that people are aware of the different activities that are going on. And then they've also partnered with our hoteliers to come up with deal packages to promote the visitation to for people coming into Kent. They try to be very strategic about when this is, as far as when the hoteliers are very slow. So we try to really get people in the door when it's either shoulder season or slower seasons with them. They also work with media writers. Last year, we sent our team onto a conference, which turned out to be a hybrid event, but it was called the Travel and Words Conference, and they met with lots and lots of different travel writers there. So they like to leverage those introductions that they made with these different writers to then really promote some different storytelling opportunities this year. One of the new things that we're working with JayRay on, which is something that our whole committee is really excited about, and it's a new tactic called geofencing marketing. Marley, I see you nodding your head, but none of us on this group knew what this was, and this is an opportunity to really leverage technology in building look-alike audiences for those who come to Kent, let's say for a concert or a hockey game. We can use this technology, which is based on our cell phones, and what privacy settings we have on our cell phones, but we're able to know, like, if people, when they're coming to our community, if they're beyond 50 miles away, we can see where they've come from, what they're doing while they're here, and the places they're going as far as restaurants, whether it's a game at Showware or if they're even staying at a hotel. But that is one of the new tactics we're going to be utilizing this year as far as really working to be much more targeted in our advertising. So we've got 4 different campaigns planned with JayRay to work with us on that. They're very much working closely with Tim Higgins at Showware and with the T-Birds on doing some look-alike marketing for us on that front. So with that, we would love to have your approval to move forward with a contract with JayRay, looking at all of our marketing activities for leisure travel here in 2022.
Any questions for Michelle? So I just have a quick question. So this is a new contract. We've had previous and I'm guessing obviously the price has increased because we are getting some of these new features. And
actually, the committee actually approved the purchase of this Datify, which is the marketer for this geofencing technology last year, as part of its contract last year. With the continued delay with COVID and what have you, they opted to delay implementing this until some of the travel restrictions were lifted. So we, utilizing this technology, we're able to proceed with the ad buys that we had already purchased last year.
Great. Good. Well, and I'm hoping that, a lot of things are changing now and people will be getting back out and trying to get back to doing some of the things they used to do, and that we'll see a noticeable difference of the amount of people that are coming to visit Kent. Yeah. So, great tool.
Yes.
Great. All right. Anyone else?
Yeah, so Michelle, I think I've asked this before, so forgive me if you're having to answer it again, but I noticed that there's not an integration between the events that are on the Visit Kent and the one in our actual government site. So is there a plan to integrate these further now that we have on the .gov side, we have a new platform running our website? So I'm wondering, and maybe that's a question for JayRay, if we could just explore having those two, having a service connect those events so we have a more holistic view on both sites.
That would be wonderful. I will check with them on if there's a way to just do that automatic integration, because it would, if we can do that with our new site, it would eliminate a lot of the work that we're doing with all of our partners as well. So
yeah, because otherwise
I'll check on that.
Looking at 2 different calendars there, so that'd be super cool. Otherwise, yeah, and I just want to confirm this comes entirely from lodging tax funds. There's no impact to our city budget.
That is correct.
Fund. Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. Any other questions? All right, do we have a motion?
Chair, I move to recommend the council approve lodging tax grant to the Economic and Community Development Department in the amount of $98,000 to be used for contracting with JayRay to maintain the VisitKent Tourism Promotion Program and web media presence, and authorize the mayor to execute a contract with JayRay, subject to final terms and conditions acceptable to the city attorney.
Second?
All right, I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And no opposed, so we will move that forward. Thank you very much,
Great,
Michelle.
thank you.
All right, and I am just taking a look. That brings us to the end of our agenda. The last item we have is adjournment. So thank you, everyone, for joining us. We are adjourned. Thank you.
Cell networks go down, given what's going on in the world today, and everybody knows what's happening in Ukraine. This is one of those items that we want to make sure